serialcity.org, and this is what our front page looks like. And then you go to Serial City Online, and you'll be given some instructions here. So in order to log in, you need a login code. And if you look down here, how to access, it'll tell you to that your coordinator from your district is given the code. I have found in experiences, and I know Tamika's probably screaming at me right now for saying this to all the teachers. If you don't know who your contact person is, go straight to Tamika Wells and ask her for the code. My job is to protect your time, and chasing down who has your code in your district. If that's time consuming, you don't know right away who it is, we're not going to deny you your code. So go email Tamika Wells and say, hey Tamika, I just finished Nancy's workshop and I need the code to access the online resources. And I'm from such and such a district, and she'll give you your code. So once you have your code, you can go log into Serial City Science. Loading, loading, loading. There we go. And then you would come down here to Forces and Interactions. And this is all the cool stuff you have. So you have activities 1 through 3, which is what we covered today.
Nancy,
4 through.
you're going to want to share your screen.
I'm not shared.
Oh, for some reason I'm looking at you. Never mind. I apologize.
You got that? Yeah, I thought it was shared. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and then you get student journals, the master copy, the answer key, and also in Spanish. And all your individual resources of your Jamboards and the demonstration videos separately. And those are also on your activity slides. And so these are for you. But remember, when you open up one of the links, I had it set up so we automatically all went to that one Jamboard, or we automatically went to that. When you open it up, it's going to ask you to make a copy. So make a copy, rename it, call it Courtney's Jamboard or whatever you want to call it, and then you share, put the sharing in with that link so you can share it with your kids and give your students access to that as well. You'll want to go to the student journal and make individual student journals for all your kids so that Joe and Jessica are not sharing a student journal. So you have your own. No cheating now. And so that is on you to do, because we don't know your kids. We don't know how many kids you have. So there's a little work involved for you to make sure you do before you launch this with your students. What am I missing here? I think that's it. So we have 6 minutes for questions, and I'd also like some feedback. What do you think about how you're gonna, I know you probably need some time to process, but are there some thoughts that have come to mind that you can share with the whole of how this is gonna work in your situation and how useful some of these tools might be?
I just want to add one thing. If you're using the slides, as you download them and see them, it's going to say like, go to a certain slide, because you don't want to, every time you need to see that slide, make a new one. So if you're using one like Jamboard, you're going to have to put that link in there when it says go to whatever Jamboard, because, so that you're all working from the same one.
Right. So when you make the copy of the Jamboard, and I asked you to keep your tabs open because otherwise you're going to be going back to different slides. So if I want you to go to the what we think chart in lesson 1A, slide 3, I will say that's the Jamboard you want to go to. So you need their Jamboard links stored someplace like they are here, your individual Jamboards. So if you're working in Google Classroom, you could just put 3PNG and your links to all your Jamboards there, so that you're not constantly making a new Jamboard. And you want to save your Jamboards so that you can come back and do those initial models 2 or 3 more times. So when you learn about gravity, you can put gravity into there. When you learn about friction, you can put friction into there. So they're an ongoing process with those until you come to a consensus model in the end of the unit.
Yep. So you'll have to fill in that link with whatever one you started with. So
Right.
that's a little bit of work to get
Right.
that filled in so that it runs smoothly for you.
Yeah. Anything else? Any questions about access or? So those of you as Joe and Jessica and Amy, you find some things that you're going to be able to be helpful for your virtual teaching of science? Joe's eyebrows went up.
Yeah, I think so. It's
Yeah.
a lot to, to navigate, but I think so.
Yeah, and if it was me, I would be picking and choosing.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
your time, and these are written in hopes that a 3rd grade classroom is doing science at least 3 or 4 times a week, and you're in the classroom and you've got maybe 45 to 55 minutes of science in at least 3 to 4 days a week. And that's just not the reality of how much time you have for science when you're actually in person online with your kids. So some of these you'll need to think about, which ones can I push out for them to do independently? Should I assign each of them to do a model, to watch the video, each of them to do a model, and then when we come back together, I'll put them in groups and they can share their individual models. That's one opportunity that of saving some time and having them do some independent work. Does that make sense? Okay.
I also like to, when we do the journals, because that's always a question even during training, is we're really expecting them to fill out every, especially 3rd grade writing is still the idea of some of the terms and the complexity of writing we kind of really want them to get to can be group discussions or and have do one with them and have them add it to their student journals so they have them as a reference. It's always kind of a question. I said student journals are a great way to create discussion where sometimes you don't have the time to allow for writing, but also it's a good time to send out as homework or extra practice or do it at home and then come back and have the discussions in class.
Mm-hmm.
So those are always good time management ways as well.
And then another thing with your Jamboards, if you're worried about kids coming in and they have the link to the Jamboard, you can unshare it, change your permissions on the Jamboard for when you're not with the kids on that Jamboard so nobody can mess with it at a different time. I'm not sure 3rd graders would do that too much, but I know middle schoolers better than I know 3rd graders. So I would definitely be locking them out when I'm not using it with them, just to keep those wonderful thoughts all intact. Okay, so I think for at least Lisa, Jennifer, and Ray, this was your 3rd training, right? Wasn't it? Your 3rd training? Is Ray still with us? Let me see. Yep, there he is. 2nd training. Okay. And Lisa, haven't you been with us for quite a few trainings?
Yep, this is my 3rd one.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Well, you're done. Yay! So I just want to thank everybody. You've been great. This is a new way of training for us. So we're hoping that it is beneficial You can look for the rest of the online portion to be, I think it's October 8th. We're putting activities 4 and 5 up there. And then about 4 weeks later, it'll be activities 6 and 7. So we're hoping to stay ahead of you. So don't go too fast, okay? How many are going to do this kit now? Well, you're working on some other science stuff right now. Okay, cool, cool. So I can breathe a little bit. With you in life science and earth science, they have to be faster. All right, well, thank you all. And hopefully we'll be together again to do some more updates and trainings for some of the other lessons if necessary. So have a good afternoon. It's gorgeous outside.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Nancy, can I ask you a question maybe?
Sure.
Okay. I wondered about the frogs.
Uh-huh.
If it was, I don't know, I'd love to get a species that we could release. And I wondered if you could explain, I'm sure there's a reason why you picked the species that we have.
Well, so do you already have your frog eggs?
No, we will do this in the spring, third
In the
trimester.
spring. Okay. So in the spring, you're going to get the northern leopard frog,
Mhm.
which is an indigenous frog. But when frog eggs are raised in captivity, we do not recommend that they get released into the wild.
Okay, so it's not
Is
the
that your question?
it's
Is
the
why can't we release them?
Yep.
We don't know what they might be introducing into a pond.
okay.
Whether we've got some bacteria in our aquariums or whether there's some genetic changes or whatever. It's just not good practice to put those into a pond if they've spent their whole lives in a lab and in aquarium water.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Sorry, I know it's awful, it's heartbreaking.
Well, no, I know it's not just because of the species,
Yeah.
but it's because of
Yeah, yeah. So if you do it in the fall, we can't get the eggs for our indigenous species because they all lay their eggs in the late winter, early spring. So that's when the best time to do that third grade life science is in the spring if you want an indigenous species.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All
Thank
right. Thanks. Bye-bye. Did we stop